Hello and welcome for our penultimate session. I always just like using the word penultimate just to whenever I can. Singing the good news into each other, session 5 of 6. Really hope that this has been helpful for you in your life or your missional community as we've been going through this. Last Sunday, we looked at Colossians 3:16.
Mm-hmm. And it says this: "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, as you sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratitude in your heart to God."
So this is singing the good news into each other. This is more than information that you download. This is when you are overjoyed, what do? You sing. I mean, our family, we make up dumb songs all the time whenever we do something that we feel like is going to be fun. And we ought to be, as a church, joyfully singing the good news into one another. It really deserves to be sung, which is why we do that on Sundays when we do it when we get together. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to break this down into, instead of just do this better, we're going to talk about a little bit of what that looks like. The first is we have to know the notes. What are the notes of the gospel? What is the story of the gospel? How does that connect with our own lives? If we don't know the notes, and we could sing, but maybe we sing the notes sometimes, but more often than not, probably not. So we have to know the notes ourselves. We have to know others and know where we're going to be singing this good news into. And if we're going to sing the good news, we have to sing out. So we have to know the notes, you have to know others, and we have to sing out. 1 Thessalonians 2:8. I use this often when we talk about sharing in our missional community. It's Paul and Timothy saying, "Because we loved you so much," this church at Thessalonica, "because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel, but our lives as well." So this singing the good news into each other, this sharing of our lives, comes out of an overflow of the love for the other person that's been given to us through the Trinity, through Jesus' work on the cross. So this is all kind of interconnected stuff. But let's talk first about knowing the notes, what it means for us to know the gospel ourselves. This word that we kind of come across sometimes in the New Testament, to know, is this Greek word epiginosko, which is not just knowing about something, but knowing something. And it's like the Wikipedia entry for somebody versus actually knowing somebody. It's like reading a manual about something, like how to play the guitar, and then actually like just playing the guitar. There's a knowledge that you get about through the experience, the hands-on experience, that is different than reading about the thing in a book. It's a real life kind of knowing. And what we want to be embodying in our lives is this real life knowing of the gospel story, and not just a snippet of it, but the big overarching story from Genesis to Revelation. It's a story of God singing out, even from the very beginning, him saying, "Let there be light." There's this his voice is being spoken, and things are coming to life that weren't even in existence before. From creation now to the fall, where we heard the song of God as humanity, but we tried to do better, or we tried to do different. We tried to mess with the song. We tried to change it a little bit, change some of the notes. Maybe not all of them, maybe like 1 or 2 that might make it more convenient. And we tried to make another song with it, and that ruined it for us. Completely, utterly ruined the song. It's like taking some kind of masterpiece and saying, yeah, but maybe this note could go here and this note could go there, and at the end you're like, oh, it does not sound good. That's the kind of songs that we make if we're kind of left to our own devices. But thankfully, our own messed up songs doesn't stop God from singing. He always sings his song of love over us. And in the person of Jesus, he made his song even more personal than it ever was before. Because now this is a song for us. This song has come in a body like the ones that we have, and is speaking words that we can understand, and living his life in front of people's eyes on this earth that we walk on. And after Jesus died and he resurrected, he sent his church to continue singing this song to more people and more places. Even as we discover the places in our own hearts that need to hear it, where we really need to hear it, we're going to be discovering other places and other people who really need to hear it as well. So the song of this gospel, this good news, is healing. It's healing broken places. It's putting together all that's broken now into one whole that's meant to be how it's one complete whole. It was always how it meant to be. It's a song of forgiveness. We make mistakes all the time, kind of trying to improvise with that tune, and we make it go wrong. But the more we listen to his tune, the more we listen to his song, is the more forgiveness we experience. It's a song that brings us out of our loneliness, brings us out of our isolation, into his home, into his family. It's a song that teaches us the right path. The more we listen to it, it gets louder, the more we're on his path. It also enables us to continue walking on his path, even when we might feel a little bit tired. If you've ever, it's like that whistle while you work kind of like mantra. Liz was telling me of this job that was like horrendous, and the way that it worked out was the people were singing together, and it kind of made the job go a little bit better. That's what the church is like. The church working together, singing together. It's also a song of hope. That's one that God's been singing to us, that we get to sing out back into this world. A hope that one day we will be remade new. Not just us individually, but this whole world will. This is something we get to be participating with a little bit now, but one day God is going to make completely new. And this is just some of the aspects of God's song that we get to hear in our own lives and how we get to sing out to others. But we must know the gospel for ourselves first. It isn't like a one-time thing, like, oh yeah, I heard that, now I get to move on to the big stuff. It's an ongoing thing. And that means your own story of not only just how you came to faith initially, but how God keeps bringing that faith to you. So there is a once and for all action of once we're in the kingdom of darkness, now we're in the kingdom of light. But once we're in that kingdom of light, it's not like God stopped working. He's continuing to work, continuing to sing his song. And we're discovering new aspects of this song, new movements, new instruments that we didn't hear before. There's many stories of your continuing faith story that we need to share. And that's what dwelling means in Colossians 3:16. So how is God working in your life? We should probably know that in order to be able to talk about it. Do you know how to share it with people who are Christians? Do you know how to share it with people who aren't Christians yet? Do we even share it in either of those kinds of situations? So first, for any of that to happen, we need to know the notes for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. We also need to know others. If we're going to be singing songs to other people, we need to know who we're singing to. We need to know what is going on with them and what songs, what truths do they need to hear. So 1 Peter 3:15 says this, if I get the right passage. But in your hearts set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. So we need to know the questions that other people have. We need to know the struggles that other people have. So when we speak, when we sing God's truth to them, it actually speaks to where the questions are. The questions don't come from us, they come from other people. So instead of just answering the questions we think people might be asking or have actually never been asked, we need to say, okay, where are people's struggles? Whether it's Christians within the church, whether it's the community of Chiltern, the non-Christians around us in our work environments, in our families, what are the questions that they're asking? What are the things that are burdening their hearts? If we don't know those things, then we don't know the parts of the gospel to sing to them. We need to know the culture, the situation, the worldview of the people that we are singing to, that we are speaking the gospel to. We need to know them. Otherwise, as Paul says, it is going to be a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. So it's basically just a bunch of noise that is going nowhere, like a toddler group with like tambourines. It is a lot, and it's not actually that helpful. So the key to a beautiful love song is that it is a deep act of love to know the person that you are singing to. And so as Christians, it is a deep act of love for us to know the people that we are trying to minister to, whether it's our fellow Christians within the church or people outside of the church. And that requires curiosity. It requires work and effort to figure that out. So it's an easy thing to just tell people about the gospel, actually, to say this is what the Bible says and this is who God is. But it is much harder to say helpful things in a good way. And this requires active listening. It's me going back to active listening again. If you can't remember, rewatch that video from the last time. But we talked about listening enough to actually understand where someone's coming from. So when we are listening to someone, it's painting a picture of who they are. So when we share the gospel with them, it's like a targeted arrow. Maybe think of it as this way. Actually, all of us are wounded, broken people that need the healing, the beauty of the gospel being sung to us. Now, if I have a gaping wound somewhere, I don't want a surgeon to come in and just be like, oh, I'm just going to stick plasters everywhere and hope that one of them hits the right spot. No, we need someone who's going to come and actually know what the problem is, that's going to understand our ailment, our wounds, and to have a targeted treatment to go for that. That is what the gospel is. We need to know people well enough to know where are their wounds, where are the hurts, where do they need healing. This beautiful song being sung to them in a targeted, direct way that is going to heal that specific place, not just stick on plasters like a child being given a first aid kit, just trying to let's try and patch it up. No, we need to know people for us to be able to sing the gospel accurately and helpfully to them.
So if we know the notes and we know others, if we are going to sing these good news, and the next thing we have to do is to do just that, to take an action, to sing it, to do something about it. Singing the gospel requires, well, singing. It's pretty kind of basic, isn't it? To make music in your heart. Ephesians 5 talks about this, what it means to make music in your heart. It means being filled with God instead of being filled with other things, being filled with ourselves, being filled, as Ephesians 5 talks about, being filled with drunkenness or all the other kind of stuff. We're not filled with that. We're filled with God. And so as we're filled with God, it's going to come out because there's too much God to be contained in this one person. Hebrews 10:24 and 25 says, "Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some in the habit are doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." All the more that we yearn for Christ's return, all the more that we yearn for this world to be remade, like full stop, remade, finished. We should not be tempted to kind of give up on each other, even like meeting with each other, but all the more we press into each other. And sometimes spurring one another on, to spur in a side isn't always going to feel great, but you run faster because of it. Now, if you're a decent horse, I don't know anything about riding horses, but I imagine you're probably not sticking that spur in the whole time. But every now and then, maybe there's a spur that needs to be going on. But what we are spurring people towards is love and good deeds. And that is what it means to sing this gospel song to others. So how do we make music in our hearts? Means doing something in your life. We have to speak the words of truth, speak the words of healing, sometimes correction, like that spur. Maybe you're going over here, need to go over here. We have to be doing this. We have to be talking to each other in these kinds of loving ways. Sometimes it means acts of service. Could just be giving dinner to somebody, watching someone's children, just getting a coffee with somebody, or giving someone a lift. It can be really simple stuff. Sometimes just hanging out. How do we know what to say? Well, we talked a little bit about what listening to God can be like, knowing the notes. We have to know the gospel for ourselves, like from Genesis to Revelation. We have to know the gospel, what's going on in our hearts. We have to be prayerful about this, of what the Holy Spirit wants us to do. And we have to know the other person. If those two things are going on, we have a pretty good idea of to know what we're going to say. Now, we're always going to be perfect, and we're going to get it wrong sometimes. But we probably don't need more information. We probably just need a little bit of loving action. It's not a plug-and-play formula where you know the notes, then you know the other person, and therefore you speak, and it's just kind of in that process. It's not kind of formula. These things are all going on all at once. And as someone is sharing where they're at, and you're understanding that, you're also kind of thinking how that connects to the gospel, and you might say something, and then that changes the things. Because it's a relationship. This isn't like some kind of math formula. These are people we're dealing with just as much as we're people who are being dealt with. And so if we're listening to God through the gospel and listening to others, the next step we have to do is actually doing something about it, which is singing to others, singing these words of the gospel to others. And that is how we're able to sing the good news into one another. That's an aspect of carrying each other's burdens and an aspect of working for others' good. If we're not bringing the gospel to bear in our normal conversations, we'll be missing out on this completely. And so you'll have a bit of time now to talk about some of this and maybe even kind of practice some of these things if you have the time in your missional communities. Maybe too, just have in the back of your mind of like, what does it look like for me to be able to sing the gospel a little bit more? Maybe it means a little bit more volume. Maybe it means less volume. Maybe it means kind of like Liz was saying about active listening, of finding those areas that are maybe a bit silent to speak the gospel into, or maybe a bit cacophonous, like those toddlers with tambourines running around. You need to speak the gospel into that area. It can mean lots of things, but we do know, because God is at work, it will mean something. And so you also have time in your missional communities to pray about this and ask God, what is it God is calling for me to do right now? He's not calling me to do everything. He's calling me to do something. What is God calling our missional community, our church, to be doing right now? So I hope you enjoyed this time, and hope you enjoy this conversation coming up in your MC, and join us for the next session.